Whose stock has risen and who's fallen over kind of the first month of the season for the Sharks. We're going to dig into that and more on today's episode of Locked On Sharks.
You're Locked On Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome to Locked On Sharks, the premier hockey podcast covering your favorite team in the Bay Area. My name is JD Young, contributor at San Jose Hockey Now, and I want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. Proudly part of the Locked On Network, we cover your team every day. And if you want to be an everyday, all you got to do is just follow wherever you get podcasts, or you can watch on YouTube as well. And today we're going to be looking at, now that we're kind of a month into the season, a little over a month into the season, whose stock I think has kind of risen and who's kind of fallen. So we'll look at some of the forwards and the defensemen. The goalies, we know, right? Mackenzie Blackwood's stock is very, very high compared to where he was heading into the season. But wanted to kind of dig into the forwards a little bit more, dig into the defensemen, and see who's kind of played better than maybe expected, or who's up their game, and then whose game maybe we just looking to see a little bit more from. So before we get into everything, do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you guys by GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. And if you want to watch or listen to the Sharks as they play the Blues tonight at 7:30 Pacific, you can catch from puck drop to the end horn of the Sharks hometown broadcast on the Sirius XM on the SXM app. Search Sharks. So let's start positive. And a player who's I think really come on, especially the past couple weeks, and that's Tomas Hertl, right? Hertl, who's been asked to do a lot for the Sharks this year, especially without Logan Couture, who's still dealing with his injury. No timetable on that. I don't think he's skating yet. But Tomas Hertl, especially since we've seen the Zetterlund line put together, Tomas Hertl, I think, has really found his game and has really been a driving force for the Sharks to be more competitive recently. And we know what Tomas Hertl is, especially the past couple seasons, but this season feels like a big step for him. And I know last year you can kind of debate what type of season he had last year, if it actually was a bad season or not. But while the production, he is leading the Sharks in points right now with 11 points so far in 16 games with his 3 goals and 8 assists. But he's playing a ton, right? He's playing almost 21 minutes a night. And he is the veteran guy who's been here, done that for the Sharks right now. And it's good to kind of see him take that step that a lot of people, thought he could take. And again, especially without Couture, the captain, who's kind of been, the limelight guy, and has shielded a lot of from criticism and whatever. But Hertl, though, not only is his production matched kind of what he, is brought, especially with so many new faces, so many players kind of making, still kind of getting used to coming to San Jose or getting used to the playing in the NHL. Hertl's been a great example of what, kind of putting his best foot forward, producing. And I really have enjoyed watching Tomas Hertl play, and especially the last week or two with the line that's been put together. It's a joy to see Tomas Hertl playing happy again. So Hertl's he's been great. We're starting to see some of that production tick up a little bit. Again, it's hard to look at production, especially for a team like the Sharks, who have scored less than 20 goals this year, right? What are they at right now? It's 21 goals in 16 games. So it's hard to look at production as a team when you're literally like just hovering over the goal per game mark. So that leads me, though, to my next person. And that's one Fabian Zetterlund, who I think myself included, most fans were very, very down on, especially the way the last season ended. And Zetterlund has been an absolute, he's been great. He's been a joy to watch. The way he just kind of that power forward mentality. And again, especially since we've seen this Eklund Zetterlund Hertl line put together. But Zetterlund has earned that spot, right? Coming in was thought maybe as a potential, healthy scratch to begin the season, kind of worked his way from the fourth line, fourth line, and has worked his way up and has earned his spot as the first line forward for the Sharks. And on most teams, Fabian Zetterlund's probably not a first line forward for you, and he's probably more of a middle six guy, but he is making the most of his opportunity right now. And, he currently is the leading goal scorer for the Sharks with 4 goals this season. And I think, though, like where we were with Zetterlund at beginning of the season, beginning of training camp to where we are now is just a completely different player. And you see why a lot of Devils fans were kind of bummed about him getting traded. And the hope now is, can he continue to keep it going? And then what happens when guys like Barabanov and Couture come back? Can Zetterlund, is he going to continue a top spot, or is he maybe going to get shuffled down? If he does get shuffled down, can he continue to produce the way we have seen him produce so far this season? So I really like that Eklund Zetterlund Hertl line. We'll see if they continue. I assume it's going to continue on Thursday's game against the Blues, based on practice reports that we saw on Wednesday. But I think, though, from what you have seen from Zetterlund, this is what you get. And I think a lot of the times you talk about trading a guy, just throw him in, etc. But like, you could tell that he just was not happy, and it was a bit of a shock to him that he got traded last season. And you see just a player who's come to the rink and is looking to produce and kind of looking to prove himself night in and night out. And I that's what I really enjoyed about Zetterlund, just that kind of full bore go mentality that he's had. So, and then the final guy who I think is kind of seen his stock raise up a little bit as much as it, Luke Kunin, who, again, Luke Kunin, not my favorite player to watch, but I think, though, he has really, I think, started to kind of round into form, especially after his knee injury. And you could tell just kind of playing hockey again, where he is really, kind of finding his game again. I know he's got 2 goals in the past 2 games. But just the style he plays is something that the Sharks just don't have a lot of right now, is that kind of combination of grit and skill, right? You can be skilled, you can be gritty, but that combination of the two together, if you're going to be gritty, at least like provide something with it, some skill with it. And Kunin does that. I still think he is playing above his weight a little bit, playing on the second line. I think he's more of a kind of a high energy third line forward. And again, when we start to see some more bodies return for the Sharks, we'll probably get slided down a little bit, but he's making the most of his opportunity, and he's done a lot with it. So again, kind of where we were at the beginning of the season to now, I think Kunin's got his legs back underneath him and is kind of rounding into form, especially after missing so much time coming off the ACL injury. And a lot of guys with the ACL takes some time. It's almost that you miss a year, and then it's almost a year of just kind of playing again before you kind of feel comfortable and get back to where you were pre-injury. So I think Kunin's played pretty well. He's gotten a bigger role, especially on the penalty kill, which is, I think he could become a really, really solid penalty killer for the Sharks. That's something I talked about during the offseason. I wrote about as well, is where I think he's got that kind of tenacity to be a good penalty killer. And I know the Sharks penalty kill right now is abysmal, but you can still kind of shift out bright spots from it. And I think Kunin has been pretty solid so far. And again, where we were at the beginning of the season to where we are now, I think Kunin's really seen his stock rise. So before we get into some of the guys who've maybe haven't, kind of fulfilled what they needed to, or maybe came out hot and have kind of cooled off. Just need to take a quick break here. If you want to get tickets for whatever the next big sporting event, maybe you want to go see the Warriors, maybe you want to go see the Sharks, maybe you want to go see the Niners, go see a comedy show, go to a concert, whatever it is, Game Time is the way to go to get tickets. They have killer last minute deals, all in prices, views from your seat, and the best price guarantee. You can see your view from the seat before you buy. That way you know what you're going to expect when you get there. Nothing worse than buying tickets and getting there and you realize you have a bad seat. Actually, the only thing worse is going to buy tickets and then you go check out and there's a bunch of fees added on. You don't have to worry about that with Game Time. All in prices, show your total upfront so you know you're getting a great deal without hidden fees. You can buy tickets in seconds with 2 taps. And Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event. Even an hour after it starts is the place to find last minute seats. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNHL, LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right. Before we continue, I do want to let you guys know that Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories on the day with local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. So go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube, subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. So let's get into some guys who maybe have seen their stock kind of drop a little bit. And I think I'm going to have to start with Filip Zadina. Zadina, who started out the season really well. I think his play has kind of dipped a little bit. You haven't seen the production. I know he got a goal the other night. And you've seen some flashes, but you just haven't seen the consistency. And he's been kind of stuck on that third line. And I don't know if maybe he's one of those players maybe needs to play with a little bit more skilled players around him. But watching Zadina, you're kind of left with wanting a little bit more out of him. And again, it's still very early in the season and there's still a long way to go. And the Sharks are still missing a bunch of pieces. But I worry when guys like Couture and Barabanov get back, where does Zadina kind of fit in, right? Maybe playing with, if Granlund gets bumped down to the third line, playing with Granlund might be a spark for his game, because we know Granlund is able to pass and kind of find guys. We've seen Granlund's passing, but you're just kind of left with a little wanting a little bit more out of Filip Zadina. So, and I still think we're still a month into the season, right? And there's still a lot of hockey to play, and the Sharks are still kind of trying to figure themselves out right now. But again, it's hard to kind of quantify, but it's just I think you kind of go where shifts where you just kind of realize Zadina was out there. Maybe you go half a period and you're like, oh, what's Zadina been up to? And you've just been kind of out there doing his thing, and he hasn't been as noticeable as you'd like. And I still like the signing by Mike Greer. Again, I still think he needs to be playing with better players, but unfortunately right now the Sharks just don't have a lot of good players. So I'm interested to see when Couture comes back, assuming Granlund goes to the 3C position, if Zadina stays on that line, and maybe you have a Zadina, Hoffman, Granlund line, you could kind of talk yourselves into that a little bit more, where can I provide some secondary scoring? And then if Zadina can continue to, I think, just be a little bit more noticeable going forward. So that's kind of what I'm looking for over the next couple of weeks for Zadina is, do something where I remember, oh yeah, he had a nice play at that part of the game. So Another guy whose stock is down is Mike Hoffman, who was supposed to come in and provide some scoring punch for the Sharks, and yes, he did get his first goal, but it took that was game 15 for you to get your first goal. He's been a healthy scratch, and he just has struggled with the Sharks. And David Quinn said it after Tuesday's game, where you just need more out of him. And again, it's I know it's a tough situation. The Sharks have not scored, and it's hard to pin any of this on one player. But it is Mike Hoffman. It's been a tough watch for him. And again, you can kind of just go an entire game and be like, oh yeah, Mike Hoffman played 15 minutes tonight. And do you remember what he did during that game? And a lot of the times it's no, I don't remember seeing Mike Hoffman do much other except for skate around or deflect a Gudis puck that goes behind Blackwood. But like you were hoping to get like, can you at least, if you're just going to skate around, can you at least provide some scoring, some punch? And he just hasn't done that, right? And I know he's playing top on the power play, like top on the power play, but like personally, I'd rather see a guy like Gushin or Zetterlund, who are both on the power play, to get those opportunities, because I think they've done more so far, and I think those guys can provide a different skill set right now, especially when you start to get healthier and healthier. Mike Hoffman right now is just not doing it for me. So, and then another guy who's kind of in the same boat is Kevin Labanc. And you knew going into the season, this was a huge season for Labanc, who's entering the last year of his deal. There's, potential trade piece for Labanc. With a little tough with his contract, but and Labanc is just kind of a lot of the same thing. And I know he's playing worse, kind of a worse position a lot, usually on the third or fourth line. But it's just, I wouldn't be surprised if he's a healthy scratch for Thursday's game against the Blues. And it's the same thing, right? You just wanting a little bit more, and he's definitely been passed by a lot of different players on the depth chart, and he seems to kind of get in and out of David Quinn's doghouse. And it's been, ever since he signed that contract, it's just been a kind of a terrible experience for him, I think. And I'm sure he's looking forward to a fresh start after the season, when he can hit free agency and go sign somewhere else. But yeah, you were hoping maybe you would come out knowing it's a contract season. Maybe you get that contract year bump where you're hoping to kind of like produce a little bit more to try to kind of bump up your term and stuff. But Labanc has been really disappointing this season. He's scored one pulling up. So Labanc has 2 assists so far in 12 games. A guy who kind of made his as a potential scorer, especially as a power play guy. I know he hasn't played much on the power play, but like it's just not clicking for Labanc this year. So I think everybody is going to be ready for a fresh start win for Labanc heading forward into the next offseason. So before we move over to the blue line and talk about some guys who've, I think, have played much better, and some guys who are, again, struggling, just going to take a quick break. Right now, you can score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. It's $150 if your team wins. So if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is super easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. Christian McCaffrey, anytime touchdown. Just keep hammering that. And then if Achane plays this weekend for the Dolphins, it looks like he is, I'm going to take an Achane touchdown, because the dude only scores touchdowns every time he touches the ball. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. All right, let's get into the blue line, and we'll again start positive. And one guy I want to highlight is one Okhotiuk, who I know his first couple games were, of course, the games where the Sharks get absolutely pummeled, and the Vancouver and Penguins games. But I think he's been quietly playing some pretty good hockey. Excuse me, especially considering his partner Jan Ruda. And Ruda's, I think, played a little bit better recently, but Okhotiuk, though, you see what kind of makes him very tantalizing for if you like your kind of stay-at-home defensive defenseman. He's physical, and I think he's smart with the puck. He's, his positioning, I think, is getting a little bit better, and I do like the way he has played recently, and kind of very blue collar workman attitude. I think the Sharks, they were very excited about getting him in part of the Timo Meier trade. I think he needs a different partner, someone maybe who's got a little bit more puck moving up availability. But I think Okhotiuk's played pretty solidly so far. And, looking at his, again, playing with Ruda, this Sharks team has been pretty much stuck in their own end. Their numbers in 85 minutes played, they have not the greatest course shot attempts, 40.9%. They have 61 shots, given up 88. But like, I don't know, there's just something about the way he plays. I kind of do like the way he plays. And in their 85 minutes, they've only given up 3 goals, which, again, they had 2 goals for, and they've given up 3 goals. Like, 3 goals for what we've seen from the Sharks isn't the worst thing in the world. So, but I do like kind of what we've seen from them, kind of in comparison. Ferraro Ruda has played like half the time, and they've given up 3 goals. Ferraro Burrows, who's played about 10 minutes less combined, have given up 7 goals. Like, just for comparison. So, but Okhotiuk, I've actually really I can kind of see why Mike Grier is very, very tantalized by him. So I want to see him with a different partner, and see kind of what happens with him. Like, he would be honestly like the perfect Erik Karlsson partner, because of, Erik Karlsson does things, but maybe when Marc-Edouard comes up, or maybe like a Henry Thrun, who have a little bit more offensive skills, I like to see those guys kind of paired together going forward. So, but Okhotiuk, I've again really enjoying what I've seen out of him now that he's kind of, again, he's also another guy who's coming off an injury and maybe starting to get his legs underneath him, much like Luke Kunin. But enjoying what I've seen out of him so far. So, and then another guy, again, going to just try to stay positive here with some of these guys. And I know I just mentioned he had some terrible numbers, but Kyle Burroughs, though, I think has provided a little bit more than I expected. Again, I know him and Ferraro have not been a good tandem together, but I really liked what I've seen with Burroughs, kind of what he's brought to the Sharks. Again, I'm not the biggest grit and grind type of player, or kind of fan of players like that, but I think he has brought, if you're going to be a gritty defensive team or unit, he has brought that with him. And again, for a signing that a lot of Sharks fans were a little kind of scratching their head about, I think he's played pretty solid so far. It's just right now there's just so many pieces, and there's potential Jake McDonald coming back, Benning's supposed to be on his way back, and the Sharks definitely have a logjam at defenseman, and I'm curious to see what they do with some of these guys going forward. But like Burroughs, I think is, he's a good 6th or 7th defenseman for you, and I think he's played well so far for the Sharks, and what we've seen. So stock down, there's one place you have to go, and that's Marc-Edouard Vlasic, who has literally seen his minutes going down, and talked about it on yesterday's episode. But the end is here for Marc-Edouard Vlasic, and we'll do a whole episode on kind of what to do with Vlasic and kind of the different options with Vlasic going forward. Probably maybe next week or the week after, and depending on what Vlasic's, how his play or what the Sharks kind of do with him. But every time he's out there, it's just kind of a struggle with him. And looking at like who he's partnered with and kind of like their shot attempts, and it's always like Vlasic's group is always near the bottom of that. Like Vlasic betting in 30 minutes of 25% shot attempts. Vlasic Ruda, 31% shot attempts. Like Corsi for like. Even like Vlasic Burrows has been okay-ish at 42%. And then, but like that's pretty much your high for like any substantial amount of time is that. And it's just been whoever Vlasic has played with has kind of, it feels like an anchor. And so, yeah, I don't know what to do with Vlasic. It's going to be a long, yeah. So, other than that, I think for the defenseman, again, it's been a lot of kind of what you would expect. Small shout outs to some guys. I think Addison, who you can kind of start to see his game starting to come together here a little bit. And I think once he gets a little bit more comfortable, continues to get some more practices in and gets to know the guys. You saw flashes of it, I thought, on Tuesday night, which was kind of like for the first time kind of seeing flashes of it. And we'll see how he continues and if the power play can kind of start to get on track with him running it here, what he can do with it. And again, it's so hard with just how bad this team is right now to kind of separate who's doing good, especially when you look at like the analytics, who's doing good because of just how bad everything gets dragged down right now by just how bad this team is. So, but yeah, I think Addison, you can start to see a little bit of the flashes for it. And then, I think like Ty Emerson, when he's gotten in there, you've seen, again, why he is kind of a intriguing player. It looks like he might be running power play 2 here. So that's kind of a little bit of a bump up for him. So hopefully he can kind of take some and run with it here. So interesting to see, again, there's how the Sharks continue to kind of pair these veteran guys and some of these younger guys, and kind of which groupings can kind of start to kind of figure things out here as the season goes on. So, and who can be part of a long-term solution, right? That's what the crux of this season is who can be long-term solutions for you, or at least pieces for you going forward. So that's going to be it for me today. We'll be back tomorrow to discuss this Blues game as the Sharks take on the Blues tonight at 7:30. Very interesting, as the Blues have kind of really figured things out over the past couple of weeks, and have been, I think, 6-4 in their last 10. So be pretty interesting to see what the Sharks can do, especially with that top line that has been on fire for them. So we'll be back to discuss that. Next week, we have a fun interview. Alex Young joins. So already have that recorded. It's a good interview, really fun to talk to him. So that'll be coming out next week as we kind of get ready for American Thanksgiving, as the season's really here now that we're in American Thanksgiving, and then start getting ready for the run towards Christmas, and then we'll start draft stuff here pretty soon, probably before Christmas this year. We'll probably start draft stuff. So that's going to be it for me today. Make sure you guys are following along wherever you get podcasts. And of course, you can watch on YouTube as well. You can follow the show on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Locked On Sharks. You can follow me on Twitter at MyFryhole. Until tomorrow. Bye, friends.